Hello everyone, we are the Group 5 and today we will be discussing about megacities.
Megacities. They are the largest cities in the world, have several million people and an amazing cultural mixture within their broad levels of population. Governments and politics are not comparable with the ones of a small town somewhere in the Midway countryside. But duties and responsibilities are also immense. Infrastructure and environment are on top of the problems list of each megacity. The Asian continent is the obvious leader of our ranking of worldwide megacities, but Asia also provides the largest urban agglomerations worldwide, which consist of a bundle of political separated cities such as Tokyo, Yokohama, New York, Manila, or Delhi.
Globalization and the megacity. So what is an urbanization? So urbanization, it is the process through which cities grow and higher percentages of the population comes to live in the city. So across the globe, in a short amount of time, we've given up the tractor for the city bus, the open landscape for one of brick and mortar. We are now an urban planet. In fact, in 2008, over 50% of the global population was living in urban areas. It was 3% in 1800s. Throughout the history, cities have attracted people as centers of culture, religion, learning, and economics. Looking back, the first wave of urban migration took place in what are today's more developed countries, especially in Europe and North America. But looking ahead, 90% of the future urban increase is expected to take place in Asia and Africa, and it is projected that more than two-thirds of all people will be calling cities home by 2050. And urbanization is often linked with the economics. So how did urbanization change city life? So the industrial expansion and the population growth radically changed the face of the nation's cities. Noise, traffic jams, slums, air pollution, and sanitation and health problems became commonplace. Mass transit, in the form of trolleys, cable cars, and subways was built, and skyscrapers began to dominate city skylines. New communities, known as suburbs, began to be built just beyond the city. Commuters, those who lived in the suburbs and traveled in and out of the city for work, began to increase in number. Implications of growing too fast. First, the rise of slums. In less developed countries, densely populated slums form both on the edges and within the largest cities. Due to a poor economy and weak infrastructure, cities such as Mumbai, India do not have the means to support the overwhelming urban population. According to the 2018 UN World Urbanization Prospects Report, Mumbai ranked as the seventh largest city in the world with 20 million people in the entire metropolitan area. Even more striking, over half of Mumbai's metro residents live in slums surrounding the city, causing huge public health, environmental, and land use problems. Slum dwellers survive with practically no sanitation, water, urban amenities, and employment or security, and roughly 1/7 of the world's population lives under these conditions. The lack of running water and sanitation, plus malnutrition and inadequate housing, leads to deadly conditions in the slums and shantytowns that surround many cities in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. The spread of HIV/AIDS and other infectious diseases in areas where so many people live in such close physical proximity is a critical public health issue for urban areas throughout the developing world. When combined with high unemployment rates and inadequate schools, these public health issues create a poor quality of life for many of the city's residents. Second, the emergence of megacities. So the urban shift over time has led to the emergence of the megacity, a city with a population of 10 million people or more. New York City and Tokyo were the first known megacities, both reaching an urban conglomeration of over 10 million population by the 1950s. But today, they are far from alone in their size. In 2018, there were 33 megacities across the planet, from Sao Paulo, Brazil to Lagos, Nigeria, and London, England to Shanghai, China. And all major global regions except Oceania are marked with megacities. Most of the cities that have reached 10 million marker in recent years are located in Asia and Africa. In fact, it's where 6 of the 8 newest megacities can be found and where 9 of the 10 projected in 2030 megacities will be located. These regions are also home to the fastest growing megacities. The population of Kinshasa, capital of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, has doubled roughly every 5 years since 1950. From 2010 to 2015, Kinshasa's population grew over 23%, and today over half of the more than 13 million residents are under 22 years old. A combination of the factors has led to this growth, including migration from rural areas, high fertility rates, and widening of the city's boundaries. The population is outpacing almost all support structures in the city where threat of food shortages, traffic congestion, and insufficient education facilities have become a stark reality. Third, the environmental pros and cons. A large urban population may seem environmentally troublesome, with cities viewed as a disruption to the natural world. But environmentalism and urbanization are not incompatible. Dense urban areas have a much smaller ecological footprint, as many people live in apartments or smaller connected houses rather than ranch-style homes in sprawling neighborhoods. Multi-family dwellings have the added benefit of being more energy efficient, and they require less resources per person. Cities are also walkable and have a public transportation options that can make car less of a necessity. And above all, densely populated areas make it possible to protect other open spaces to serve as wildlife habitat, farmland, conservation areas, or oxygen-producing forests. But of course, there are ecological downsides to cities as well. Concentrations of people mean concentrations of pollutants and trash. Cities produce up to 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions, and smog is becoming a common feature in many urban landscapes. Large swaths of continuous pavement prevent water drainage and boost temperatures. Without proper infrastructure, cities also risk having waste, both trash and human waste, clogging waterways and causing damage. And with cities across the globe producing more than 2 billion tons of waste annually, that's a lot for one area to handle. The megacities for the future. For the world's growing population, the future is urban. It is estimated that by 2030, there will be 41 megacities with more than 10 million inhabitants. The people in these cities will consume 81% of the world's resources. It is projected that most future urban growth will happen in settlements currently home between 100,000 and 200,000 people. And if this is to be done sustainably, planning is a must. Future high-growth areas require strategic urban planning individually tailored to a city's history, culture, value system, and other specificities. A single cookie-cutter approach won't work, nor will the plans of the 20th century. But by keeping an eye towards social justice concerns, natural resource use, environmental hazards, and other issues of modern cities, urban plans can help ensure the health and well-being of tomorrow's cities dwellers.
The great metropolises of the world facilitate human interaction, creating that indefinable buzz and soul of the city. The wellspring of its innovation and excitement that is a major contributor to its resilience and success, economically and socially. Anticipating such cities holds the opportunity for numerous businesses to expand. Gaining insight into this vast and diverse urban landscape also allows governments and policymakers to tackle prevailing social and economic issues. Urban density creates critical mass, attracts diversity, and makes possible the creative combustion that brings life, new ideas, entrepreneurial vigor, and an innovative verb to urban communities. The high concentration of industries and services in highly urbanized cities has attracted job seekers to relocate in droves to find employment and gain better access to education, healthcare, and overall quality of life. However, megacities has also negative effects. For instance, megacities in developing countries such as the Philippines have struggled to protect their residents and keep their economic engine driving, especially during the pandemic. They thrive on cheap labor and government policies fuel this abuse. Stagnant rural economies encourage people to move to the cities, hollowing out rural communities and leaving a whole often replaced by an increasingly concentrated and industrialized agricultural system. The high cost of living in megacities forces many of the people to live in slums or peripheral communities. The expansion of cities beyond the ability of infrastructure to cope means these communities have lower quality housing, worse access to education, poor provision of electricity and clean water, bad sanitation, traffic congestion, dead spots for internet and mobile access. The spread of HIV/AIDS and other infectious diseases in areas where so many people live in such close physical proximity is a critical public health issue for urban areas throughout the developing world. When combined with high unemployment rates and inadequate schools, these public health issues creates a poor quality of life for many of the city's residents.
I am the next reporter, and now we're going to tackle about the challenges of living in megacities. So these are the following. First is the housing. The rapid growth of megacity populations result in significant challenges in accommodating people. Homelessness, squatting, and slum areas are all commonplace. Slums often form in the least desirable places. So it means megacities are well known for containing slums, areas of makeshift or substandard housing. Slums create a significant range of problems for megacities as their chaotic and close-knit nature make it very difficult to improve infrastructure within a slum area. The absence of services also makes slums very unhealthy places, while their building materials make them quite hazardous. So next is the traffic infrastructure. With over 10 million residents, traffic in megacities can be dire. The dropping rates of extreme poverty in the world also make the ownership of a vehicle more common for the world's population and consequently make traffic worse. Traffic in megacities is made more problematic by two features. What are these? Firstly, the variation in vehicles can inhibit vehicle movement. It is not uncommon in megacities for two-stroke engine taxis such as auto rickshaws and cycle rickshaws, elephants, motorcycles, cars, buses, and trucks to all share the same roads. As these vehicles move at different top speeds and with different maneuverability, they can block each other's flow. Traffic in megacities is also hampered by a culture of unstandardized driver training. Without a significant culture of road rules, traffic becomes more gridlocked. The third one is the water and sanitation supplies. Clean running water and sewage removal are essential for health and disease control in many places. They are both significant challenges for megacities. Firstly, because of the inability to provide water in slum areas. Secondly, because the old colonial infrastructure in many megacities is unable to deal with the volume and new materials in sewer systems. Megacities in developing nations vary in the provision of water into homes. However, nearly all megacities face water scarcity. Cities such as Delhi in India and Sao Paulo have experienced significant drought periods in recent history. Some example rates of water access are given based on the research or the article that I have read Jakarta, Dhaka 10 to 20%, Cairo and Istanbul 40%, Rio de Janeiro 55%, Manila and Shanghai are typically with 95 to 100%. Many cities rely on groundwater extraction, which is unsustainable. Megacities also have options for significant gains from wastewater treatment and loss reduction from leaking infrastructure. Next is the electricity services. Electricity supplies are often inadequate and unreliable in megacities, resulting in frequent blackouts and brownouts. Power outages reduce foreign investment and quality of living for residents. Power theft is also rampant in megacities. Without electricity for cooking, biomass such as wood or dung is often used by the poorest households, contributing to low air quality and greater household fire risk. Megacities residents, however, see great advantage in renewable energy, both for the ability to no longer be reliant on the grid and being able to supply the minuscule power needs for slum families. Okay, we proceed to the next, which is the employment. Megacities have rapidly growing populations and job creation cannot match this pace of growth. However, informal economic activity frequently a large part of the economy. This leaves cities without revenue to provide adequate services, and informal economic conditions make wages and conditions difficult to regulate. However, informal economic activity is not necessarily black market activity. And then lastly, other social and health issues. Megacities often have high levels of inequality as well. In some megacities, high inequality and large populations of people who have recently arrived with a strong social network has led to high levels of violent crime, organized crime, begging, and petty theft being more commonplace. Air pollution and communicable disease are considered greater threats to health in megacities. So, those are the challenges of living in megacities.
Urbanization can be defined as a population shift from rural to urban areas. Whereas only 1 century ago, people often lived in rural areas to work in agriculture. Most people on our planet now work in a city since the kind of work that is needed in our society has changed significantly, and people rather work in office jobs than in agricultural jobs. Therefore, also the lifestyle of people changed significantly over time. Although urbanization has its advantages, there are also some problems related to it. The following are the pros and cons of urbanization or megacities in society, education, and agriculture. First, better public transport. One important advantage of urbanization is that cities often provide much better public transport compared to rural areas. In small villages, there is barely any public transport all, all, or you have to wait a quite long time. Some cities offer a quite reliable public transportation system, and you only have to wait a couple of minutes until the next train or bus will arrive. Moreover, in many big cities, you do not even need a car to get around since the public transportation system is so good. Thus, especially if you do not have a car or want to drive a car, you will do yourself a big favor by living in big cities instead of rural areas. Second, more education opportunities. Cities often provide plenty of educational opportunities. This can range from the variety of preschools over public or private schools to higher education facilities like universities. Third, better internet connection. Urbanization also lead to the need for sophisticated technologies and finally lead to access to the internet for billions of people on our planet. Although there are also some problems related to the internet, it can be considered to be one of the biggest and most important inventions in human history, since it can make our lives so much better if we use it in the right manner, especially during these times wherein everything is through online, especially in the field of education. Number 4. More efficient terms of land use. Urbanization can also contribute to more efficient land use. Since our world population is growing and we will soon suffer from significant levels of overpopulation, it is crucial to use our space as efficiently as possible. By building big cities, the space per person can be reduced dramatically since more people can live in smaller flats instead of big houses like in rural areas. Thus, the overall demand for space per person may decrease significantly due to urbanization, which may help to deal with our growing world population. Number 5. People in cities are usually more tolerant. On average, people also tend to be more tolerant in bigger cities compared to small villages. People in small rural villages are often more conservative and do not value new cultures too much. Sometimes, cultural minorities are even socially isolated in those regions. However, in big cities, tolerance towards minorities is often much better since people are more open and do not see those cultures as a threat, but rather as an opportunity to experience new lifestyle. Number 6. Better connection to healthcare facilities. Urbanization also gave people much better access to important healthcare facilities like hospitals. While it is quite hard to find hospitals in remote rural areas, it is rather easy to find them in bigger cities. Hence, if you suffer from a serious health condition, you are much better off if you live in a big city since you will have much better access to proper medical treatment on average. Number 7. Easier to socialize. Urbanization has also contributed to a state where it is much easier to socialize for people in big cities. Since public transport is quite good and people often live relatively close to each other, it is easier to meet and to maintain friendships and business connections. Hence, urbanization has also made it easier for many people to connect to others, which can be quite beneficial in all parts of our life. Lastly, better recycling system. Urbanization has also contributed to the development of much more sophisticated waste management and recycling process. While there might not be recycling opportunities in remote rural areas, there are several easy ways to recycle your things in big cities. Therefore, the recycling infrastructure is much better in urban areas and our resources can be used more efficiently due to that. Next are the disadvantages or the cons of megacities. First, higher level of air pollution. One of the disadvantages of megacities is that it leads to significant air pollution cases. Many people have to commute to work and back and use their car. In turn, this implies significant air pollution from the fumes that are emitted from combustion engines. Thus, if you live in a big city, chances are that you will suffer from rather poor air quality. Number 2. Littering. Urbanization has also contributed to the littering problem in big cities. Since many people live in a rather confined space, there is often plenty of waste that is just disposed of right on the streets. A prominent example of this is the disposal of cigarettes. You might notice that there are plenty of cigarette stubs on our streets, and people seem not to care about disposing of them in a proper manner at all. Number 3. Cities may become quite crowded. Another downside of urbanization is that it contributes to the state where cities become quite crowded. If the population density becomes too high, the quality of life will decrease since we, as humans, need some space to breathe, and too many people in a confined space will result in an increase in stress levels for many of us. Number 4. Increase health issues. The higher pollution and stress levels in big cities, which can be attributed to urbanization, also lead to higher risk for serious health problems. For instance, poor air quality can cause asthma or lung cancer. Moreover, high stress levels may result in serious cardiovascular diseases in the long run. Hence, also the overall life expectancy of people living in big cities may be negatively affected due to those factors. Number 5. Higher chances for homelessness. If rents become too high due to the urbanization issue, chances are that many people may no longer be able to pay such large amounts of money for their accommodation. In turn, those people may even become homeless if they get kicked out of their house or their apartment. Therefore, the chances for homelessness may also increase as a result of urbanization. Number 6. Development of slums. Urbanization also increases the risk of the development of slums. Poor people often do not have the money to afford renting a flat in the city center. Thus, slums are likely to form around the city borders where people have to live under quite poor conditions. Number 7. Spread of diseases. As a result of urbanization, also the spread of diseases become far more likely. Since the population density is quite high in big cities, there is much more close interaction in our daily life, and the chances for diseases to spread from one person to another is much higher compared to rural areas with a lower population density. Number 8. Waste management problems. In some big cities, especially in poor parts of our planet, there is a big waste management problem. Backyards are often filled with large amount of waste since the public waste management infrastructure is quite poor and people produce more waste than municipalities can handle. In turn, diseases are much more likely to spread due to those unhygienic conditions. Number 9. Lack of natural resources. Urbanization has also led to a state where there are not too many green places left in many big cities. Since property prices skyrocket in many cities, municipalities often decide to sacrifice parks in order to seal the space to investors who want to build a big building on it. However, due to lack of green recovery spaces, the overall quality of life may vastly decrease in big cities. Lastly, alteration of local ecosystems. Urbanization has also significantly altered many local systems. Since the need of housing in many areas increased dramatically, large forest areas had to be cut down in order to get settlement space. In turn, many animals lost their natural habitats and had to relocate. Many of them also suffered from a significant drop in populations, which in turn lead to significant ecological imbalance.
Different megacities in the world. The total number of megacities in the world varies between different sources. The world had 33 according to the UN in 2018, 37 according to city population in 2020, and 35 according to Demographia in 2020. About half these urban agglomerations are in China and India. In the next 20 years, it is estimated that around 70% of the world population will be living in megacities or urban areas with a population of 10 million people or more. Asia, with 20 megacities, tops the list. These are some of the megacities in the world. First, Tokyo, Japan. Tokyo comes first in the rankings for 2020 with 37.5 million residents. But in the upcoming years, Tokyo might lose first place as young residents are having fewer children, leading the population to a decline. It is estimated that the population will be reduced to 7.13 million by 2100s. Next is Shanghai. Shanghai closes the podium on the list that includes the megacities for 2020. The city has the largest population compared to the rest in China. Shanghai's population for 2020 is 25.6 million. Specific constructions helped most residents to have access to water, electricity, and waste collection. But the population density is really high, which causes environmental problems such as a high level of air pollution. Beijing. Beijing's population is 19.6 million. This number gives the city the 8th place on the list with the largest cities in the world for 2020. Mumbai, India. Mumbai is the largest city in India, although New Delhi is the capital. Mumbai is a megacity of global importance because of its strong, diverse economy and dynamic creative industries. A megacity, one whose population is more than 10 million, more than 21 million people live in the Greater Mumbai metropolitan region. Sao Paulo, Brazil. At the 4th place on the list comes Sao Paulo in Brazil with 21.7 million population. A lot of residents have moved to the suburbs and commute to the city center for their work. So the urban center has a high level of pollution and many other problems caused by overpopulation. Delhi. With a population of 28.5 million in 2020, Delhi comes second. Delhi is the second wealthiest city in India after Mumbai and is home to 18 billionaires and 23,000 millionaires. Delhi ranks 5th among the Indian states and union territories in the Human Development Index. It has the second highest GDP per capita in India. It is of great historical significance as an important commercial, transport, and cultural hub, as well as the political center of India. Next is Mexico City. Mexico City is at number 5 of the list. The city's population is 21.6 million. This increase in population as a consequence of the growth of industries in the city center, which offered better access to electricity, water, and gas. New York City. The biggest U.S. city is New York City and comes 31st in the worldwide ranking. In the 21st century, New York City has kept its place as one of the world's leading cities. Its economic power, openness to ideas and immigrants, and world-class cultural assets remain a potent combination. It is now breaking new ground with cultural policymaking, which reaches across all parts of city governance, promotes better conversations with city residents, and champions better representation for all cultural groups. Dhaka, a megacity, largest city and capital of Bangladesh, located on the east banks of the Burenganga River in the Ganges Delta. Next is London. In 1815, London was the largest city in the world. Nowadays, it still has a place among the largest cities on the list globally. Lastly is the Metro Manila. Manila, the capital of the Philippines, is also a megacity with over 12 million inhabitants. Nearly 42,000 people live in each square kilometer of the city. Those are some of the megacities in the world.
I believe that ends our discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Once again, we are the Group 5.